So, are the Detroit Pistons chasing the New York Knicks? And naturally, most would say, yeah, you're chasing the Knicks. They're the team to beat. They're the world champions. But to be honest with you, I don't feel like the Pistons are chasing the Knicks as far as building a team to beat the Knicks. I think really what you chasing, I think most of especially in the Western Conference, I believe that what we are chasing is the Spurs and the Thunder. I think really the Spurs, when you're trying to compete with Wemby. And one thing, matchups is that, I feel like if the Pistons made it to the championship and they played the Spurs would have beat us. It's a matchup thing. But the one thing about the Knicks, even though we was a bad matchup for the Knicks was a great matchup for the Spurs. They had two big fellas to San Antonio's one big fella, and those big fellas were grown men. Cat was a grown man strength, and Mitchell Robinson is grown man strength. Cat really set the tone early in the series, kind of tapered off of foul trouble down the road in that series, but he set the tone. Wemby and them, they had battles with the Thunder. I forget who they played in the first round, but they had some battles in there. You know what I mean? And they had some battles in there. And at the end of the day, I just know for a fact that they got wore down. And then when you go with the New York Knicks, you got two big guys who can just boom, boom, boom. And the Knicks, I know they want to keep Mitchell Robinson, but to be honest with you, they need to really, if they lose him, they need to replace him. But that's what you're really chasing. You really chasing San Antonio. You chasing the Thunder. You match up well with the Knicks, and we'll see what Boston does going forward. Oh, I just literally hate driving out here, dog. Ugh. But you're really chasing the Spurs, chasing Wemby, chasing the Thunder. That's what you're really chasing. When I say chasing, you're really building a team to be able to beat those guys. You know what I mean? And the Pistons, like I said, people saying in the comments, well, Duran didn't play well versus Wemby. And rightfully so. I mean, or Duran needs to be, and he definitely do need to be better if they keep him, and the Spurs need to make an adjustment. Just having Wemby and Cornette and Bismack Biyombo, that's not enough, especially when Wemby spend 90% of his time at the three-point line. So, there needs some adjustments to be made, but for the Pistons, man, that's what they chasing. How do we match up with them? And in general, take the ball away from Cade Cunningham, double him, get the ball, who can do something without the ball. I mean, who can do something with the ball? So, some of the deficiencies is going to kind of change the trajectory on how they play against the Spurs. You know what I mean? Kind of they was a good matchup for us. Or how they play against Cleveland, where Cleveland can double team Cade or put pressure on Cade. Now, if you add him a relief valve at the 2-guard position, or you add him a couple more shooters, especially at the 4 position, it's a totally different ball game. You know what I'm saying? So in reality, they the world champions, but you, in one of the rare feats, you match up very, very well with the world champions, but who you don't match up well with is San Antonio. You match up pretty well with the Thunder, but I think if they can fix their deficiencies with somebody else that can score the ball, handle the ball, somebody at the 4 position who can shoot the ball at a higher clip, defend, a little bit younger version of Tobias Harris, better shooter, and bring a little bit of juice off the bench offensively. That's what you expected Karis LeVert to be, is what Beasley was. I mean, I think they, if they can stay healthy, they one of the best, the best in the league. Especially if you can fix that camaraderie mismatch, and you can still keep that DNA intact where y'all play well, y'all play for each other, everybody fit in and play as one. That's the power of the Pistons, and that's why you really can't play with that core too much, is because how well they play together. The unison, I can talk to you this way and we can figure this out. So in reality, yeah, everybody's chasing the Knicks. In reality, the Pistons was really chasing the Spurs, the Thunder, and they chasing their deficiencies first and foremost, So that's what it really is. You match up well with the Knicks, You know, you match up really well with them. So this is going to be very, very interesting. This is going to be very interesting for the Pistons, man. Very, very interesting, man. Honestly, you know, when you have these deficiencies, you have to hop on them, and it's the good time to fix them right now before you paying guys and who to pay, and you don't have no major contracts right now, but Cade Cunningham. A lot of the contracts, Karis LeVert, you can get from under. Duncan Robinson, you can get from under. But realistically, they really chasing the team that they don't match up well with, and that's the Spurs. That's who you really chase. That one team that really, you know, people can say Cleveland, the referees really decided that series with Cleveland just to keep it a bow wow. You know what I'm saying? But there were some deficiencies there. Now you got to find somebody who can free Cade up, a couple guys that can free him up. Schroeder kind of did that, but there still was some deficiencies there. People forget. Karis LeVert had, you know, better playoff games than Malik Beasley did. But, you know, Malik Beasley, that's probably the first time he was counted on to really be the next guy next to Cade. That's a large responsibility. That's a huge responsibility. You know, Jalen Duren this year, you know, he was counted to be the next guy outside of Cade. Tobias took that onus off of him a little bit. But when you're looking for the money that you're looking for, you got to be that guy. At least on one side of the floor. You can't get dog walked in the paint, dog walked offensively, defensively. That, you know, can't happen. You know what I'm saying? So, but in general, you looking at guys matching up with Wemby. And if you the Thunder, you looking to get a body for Wemby. Shit. That's how the Knicks showed y'all, multiple bodies. Then you got Josh Hart in there throwing his weight around and getting rebounds and being a mini big man. You need guys that's going to bang Wemby around. You know? That's what's not being talked about enough. Everybody, Brunson, it was really Cat and Mitchell Robinson and Hart who did a number on them. And San Antonio deficiency, you could talk about was coaching. It was De'Aaron Fox. But once you really think about it, they didn't have another big fella to help Wemby out, to spell Wemby. And they need a guy that played inside. Wemby played too much on the perimeter. That got to change for Wemby. But also, you need somebody that's going to help Wemby on the inside. You know, you need somebody that's going to bang and, you know, help Wemby and bang, take some stress off of Wemby. You know, you don't have nobody that's going to help Wemby in there be physical and post up and help, you know, Wemby or play with Wemby. You know, Wemby play on the perimeter so much, well, you could put a dude like Robert Williams in there, a guy like, you know, that kid from Michigan, Mara, in there. I mean, you could do a lot with Wemby. Playing with a Jaren Jackson, you know, you could do a lot with him. So, but in reality, you tracing deficiencies, and that's what I'm pretty much trying to say. And teams you match up bad against, and that's the Spurs, and that's your deficiencies. But hey, that's just my opinion on it. Thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, find me on X, Facebook, Kick, Twitch, Instagram, Spotify, Anchor, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. Appreciate the love, support. Peace.